Hello and welcome back to the Cocked Dice. Tonight's conversion video is a fairly simple one. We're going to tackle an Iron Hands Space Marine. We're going to be building this mainly out of a fairly static pose Assault Intercessor. I like these just because they go together pretty easily. We've grabbed a few bits from some Mechanicus kits, some interesting heads with varying degrees of bionics, respirators and that sort of stuff, extra gubbins to stick onto him later if we make any messes, and a massive Thunder Hammer, which I think is a Grey Knight one off the top of my head. It could be a Deathwatch one. Ooh, Grey Knight, Deathwatch, one or the other. Anyway, let's crack on. So the first job on tonight's video is going to be replacing the Assault Intercessor chest with this piece, which is from a Cataphron Breacher. Now, just looking over the sizing, it's about the same size as you can see there. So we're going to cut just round the underneath the torso piece and replace it wholly there. So sharp knife, and we're just going to score a few lines through this and start working our way through it. You've seen me do this on other videos. The best way to do it is just take it slowly. Now, if you didn't want this top piece, you could just snip it off and work your way down, but I find these quite handy for practicing on, so I'm going to try and save it. So I'll get this off and I'm back in a minute. So once you've got any sort of chest piece off like this, it's always worth just test fitting them over the existing body. So obviously we're going to set this, get this on camera. So this is going to sit just above the chest piece here. We can see where I want the shoulder to meet, which is about up there. This shoulder, however, has a very large piece on it, which is their kind of shoulder guard. So we're going to have to do some trimming, take this off, take that arm off, and see where we're at. So I'll just whip them off quickly now and we'll see how this looks. So side one's easiest. We're just going to take a cut just behind the edge of it here and cut straight through. And the top one I'm going to try and take round about the top of his collar here. So we're going to try and follow that line backwards, like so. We can always rebuild some more colour on this side later. So we know we've got a good connection on one side here. This side we still need to cut this back a bit. See where it's going to place. It's going to place just about there. It's not awful. This comes over. Now I don't want this to come over because I'm going to have to fit a head in there yet. Look at the heads. Going to be a very tight squeeze to fit a head in this piece, so I'm going to have to take this side piece here off. So because of the overall shape of this, you can obviously see there's quite a stilt on one side of it. I need to shunt it across a little bit to make sure there's enough room for a head. I'm going to cut this right there, so behind this piece here, cut straight up, and then we'll try and get it nice and even. Now with a bit more pushing and shoving, we've got pretty much a perfect fit there. I'm not sure you can see that. There you go. So we've got a bit of a void in the side. We're going to stuff that full of green stuff in a minute, but I'm pretty happy with that. So next job is going to be sorting his knees out. Now what I want to do is I want to swap this knee. So I'm going to swap the back knee, the flatter knee, to have this on. So essentially all I'm going to do is shave down the knee pad itself until I've got a flat surface, and then drop this on top of it. Kind of mark this guy as their close ties with the Adaptus Mechanicus. So the easiest way to do this is just take it off in thin layers. Don't cut too far, and be very careful of this top piece because we don't want to cut that off. I want to keep these cuts level. I've sloped off that way a little bit, so I'm going to try and trim a bit just off this side now. Just file across nice and gently and even that out a little bit. Make sure we haven't got any lumps or bumps where we don't want them. And as we can see, that piece fits on really nicely. I believe these are from the Imperial Knights kit. I've got a whole bunch of them. I've no idea where they came from. I'll have grabbed them off eBay at some point. But if you can get hold of them, they're really useful because they're the same size as Space Marine knees, and they've got this kind of cool Mechanicus design around them. Last thing I'm going to do before I put the legs on, this is going to be just a normal Intercessor, so I don't need this enormous pouch. I've seen all sorts of grumblings in the comments about me leaving empty holsters. or alternatively giving people 2 pistols. So I'm going to be careful this time and actually remember to remove it. Don't need to be over the neat. I'm going to cover up the area with a normal pistol holster later. So just clean up the bit you cut off with your knife, and then we'll get this guy glued together. So you may find you need to trim some of the inside bits down a little bit just to make sure it sits as flush as possible. So we're going to add a little bit of glue on here. It's a good pivot point, and 2 on the corners there, and we're just going to drop this on top, and then just head round and make sure the shoulder are relatively well aligned. You can see there we've got quite a nice opening for Space Marine head here. This is only cutting across a little bit, so it shouldn't matter wholly. I think that's a pretty good fit, and that is starting to look pretty awesome. Maybe this Marine took a fairly chunky chest wound at some point and needed a cyborged body. You could, looking at the end of this, you could actually take that top plate on the chest out and push it in just a wee little bit. Alternatively, you could lift this a little higher and strip this collar off entirely if you wanted it to be more chest height. I'm going to leave it as it is because I think I want the collar on. I'm going to tuck a head behind it afterwards, and I think it'll make him look pretty imposing. So obviously we've got some massive voids in there, and we need something to stick arms to, so we're going to head over and grab some green stuff. So because that's quite a big cavity, you're going to want a ball of green stuff roughly the same size as chest, because we're going to try and stuff it full, bearing in mind that this has only just been glued and might still be a little weak. So if you watch my other videos on chest swap outs, we're going to do exactly the same as usual. We're just going to stuff this full of some little sausages of green stuff, and then with the kind of spoony end of your sculpting tool, we are literally just going to start shoving this inside until it stops moving too far back, and this will build a decent foundation for us. Now I want to keep this chest fairly square, so I'm going to work up and leave it just behind this area here, and then we'll sculpt some cabling and wires in afterwards. So there we have it with the sculpting. As you can see, I've sculpted out and then just drawn some lines across this bit underneath his chest here to make it look some sort of flexible under armour weave, which is a bit similar to the kind of piping and jointing that's on the rest of the Marine. Next job is going to be checking arms fit. So his shoulder arm here is going to fit on there. We've actually got a bit of leeway. I'm going to flatten that off a bit. Gun up if you want. That should fit fine. His other arm's going to be about bionic arms. We've got a bit more leeway there, and then we'll check some heads as well. That's going to sit. Oh, that sits inside rather nicely. Quite like that. That's an aggressor head. We've got an actual Iron Hands head. That sits well down inside that helmet. That also looks pretty damn cool. Might make that's an easy option. Obviously, if you haven't got an Iron Hands head, then any old helmet with some bionics. Again, that looks pretty cool. That's catching on the side just a bit there, so I think we're going to go with the aggressor head on this one. So one thing I'm going to do on this is, I've noticed I've left the little joint on from I think this is it? No, it can't be the easy build aggressors because he's not blue. It must be the normal aggressors kit. No idea. Got loads of them again. So we need to make some bionics for this guy. Iron Hands, of course, like to replace random body parts. You've seen me make some scratch built ones. I thought I'd do something a little easier this time, and Adaptive Mechanics kits are absolutely covered in all sorts of cool bionic limbs. Most of the Vanguard kind of kits, Vanguard Ranger kit, they're all too small for Space Marines. But if you buy the Rust Stalkers kit, that is pretty much, if I spin it around like that, the same length and kind of proportions as a Space Marine arm. So if we cut this leg off here, then trim this top bit down here, we essentially have a Space Marine arm. So we're going to drop a shoulder pad on top of it there. We want the shoulder pad to sit fairly square on so that piston's coming out. I also need to twist the arm as far back as possible to make room for the thunder hammer. So what that really means is we need to cut across this side over that way and try and take some of the weight off this side and just trim this down probably to about there. So I'm going to cut there, cut there. Okay, so again, if you're best doing it on a mat. Don't do as I do and do it towards my thumb all the time. I'm terrible. Then Charlie tells me off for it. I'm amazed I've never sliced my thumb open on any of these videos. See, that's starting to get a little bit better there. I want to take a little bit more off, get that down. So we're just going to trim and trim and trim until this fits nicely. Now just sort of gently resting this together, you can see roughly where I'm going for. So I'm going to need to trim and round this more and make this little circular bit here into more of a wrist joint to get that, kind of twist it around back there, and I think that should give us a fairly good pose. Now I need to take a little bit into the arm there, but we are going to be able to fit this on pretty neatly there. So the next job is, as I said before, I want to take some of this off and just shorten the length. I don't need the whole thing, so we're going to pick a point. Obviously you don't want to pick it right under the hand here, you want to give the hammer a bit of a haft, and I reckon about there is about the right length for a thunder hammer. So we're just going to cut across here as smoothly as possible without losing this bit, because I need a bit of it. There we go. Little off square there, so I'll square this up just with a knife and then grab this end of the haft here, trim it off, and then if you've mistrimmed it at all or it just isn't quite neat as you want it, just give it a quick clean up. There we have it, one shortened thunder hammer. Now his other arm, doing nothing exciting with, so we're going to get these arms stuck on now, and we are getting towards the end of the model. Okie dokie, we've got everything assembled now, so I've dropped his head in, made it look in the kind of direction I want him, stepping round with his hammer back over here. I've used one of the many shields you get in all sort of assault intercessor kits and modern intercessor kits for the sergeant. That just helps hide the area around his shoulder pad where I've had to bring his arm out a little bit and stuff it full of green stuff. Replaced his big Indomitus heavy bolt pistol pouch with a normal sized one, and then round on this side, just to hide the join between the Adaptus Mechanicus leg and his hand, I've dropped a couple of purity seals. Stuff like this just helps hide and mask any kind of slightly messy areas if you haven't got the time to clean it up. So I'm going to call him done now. If you hang on for a minute, there'll be a painted video of him coming up right now. And thanks for joining us here at the Clock Dice. Why not like this video and add a comment below? It really helps boost the channel. And while you're at it, if you click on the icon below, you can subscribe to the channel for all the latest updates as soon as they're live. Why not check out some of our other videos and playlists? You can click on the ones on screen right now. Take care, and we'll see you next time.